Hi, everyone. I am Jenny Lynn Wire, award-winning author of Steamy Small Town and Spicy Dark Romance, and your host for this episode of Here for the Romance. I'm so excited to welcome the fabulous and uber-talented Kira Omans to the podcast today. Kira is an award-winning actor, model, martial artist, and adoptee advocate. She appears in CSI Vegas, Him, What Happened to Suzy, and Power Rangers Rise of the Ninja. Her voiceover credits include Netflix's Girl from Nowhere, HBO's Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, and Microsoft. Kira has also narrated over 250 audiobooks, including My Savage Kingdom series and My Fallen Brook series. Kira, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and I'm really glad you're doing this.
Yeah, I know we had before we started recording, we had talked about how we've known each other for years, but we've never met. So this is really the first time us meeting, and I'm like, fangirling over you right now. So
No, I feel the same way. It's so funny to have, like you said, worked on both of your series and just fallen in love with your characters and know that you created them, but have never actually gotten a chance to talk like this. So, this is really fun.
so for so the podcast focuses on the romance book world, authors, creators, narrators, illustrators. So for the readers who, I really focus the podcast on, who are not familiar with you or your work, do you want to, kind of introduce yourself and, tell them what you do?
Sure, sure. I thank you. I like you said, I'm Kira, and I've been narrating audiobooks for about 10 years now, which is crazy to think about. I've narrated across all different genres. I do love romance. I mostly no narrate romance novels. I also just enjoy reading romance, so that really works out. Like you mentioned, I also do voiceover work for TV and film, and I also act on screen as well. My narration work, I have narrated for USA Today bestselling authors. I've gotten the chance to do a couple of um, adoptee books that I really enjoy that aligns with my advocacy work. And so I really enjoy just like a series like yours where I'm enjoying the actual writing, I'm enjoying the characters, and also have the privilege of being able to voice them.
So, what originally drew you to audiobook narration, specifically romance books, because you tend to focus in that genre the most, I think.
Yes, yes, definitely. So before I became an actor, I really wanted to write, and I still really enjoy writing. So I've always really just enjoyed the literary world. And in college, I studied both theater performance and communications. And it was actually my journalism professor that recommended I get into audiobooks and narration just to combine a couple of my different loves and skill sets. And I also just really like to read books with a romantic subplot, and there are just plentiful romance books like being written. So that was kind of just what I fell into naturally. When I act on screen, I also tend to play more romantic characters, characters with a love interest. So that might just be something about me as an actor that fits well with those types of characters, which I'm not complaining about. I really like performing in those kinds of works.
Most audiobook narrators, speaking of how you started out with that, they really like to seclude themselves in a room. I've seen, if you've seen the TikToks or the Instagram reels
Yes.
where a narrator is like in this padded room, dark with the screen and the microphone and everything. What is your space like when you narrate audiobooks?
It's very similar to what you're describing. I just record in my closet and I have it lined with these noise absorbing blankets and this foam that really helps with the reverberation in the room. I just have my mic, my pop filter, and then just keep some water on hand.
Because I was going to ask, is there like must-haves that you like drinks, snacks, things that you have to have with you whenever you lock yourself in your closet?
Yes, water for sure. I usually try to do tea in the morning just because a warm beverage really helps my vocal cords. I don't tend to keep food in the booth just because, like, my mouth will end up making a lot of pops afterwards after I've eaten or something. So, if I have to have a snack, like, I'll take a break. But I don't tend to keep any in the booth with me.
Oh, I want to get into kind of like what you do for narration because you've done two of my series, I think 7 books in all. And one thing that I picked up immediately when we first started our journey together is that you really have a talent for different voices and different accents
Oh, thank you.
because you narrated both the male and female characters in my audiobooks. I'm very female positivity focused, and so I really love having female narrators for my books. And I know that I threw doozies at you at some time because, I include Irish and Spanish and Russian and British. So how do you prepare before recording an audiobook when you know that you have to create distinct voices? Maybe you have to learn how to say something in a different language. For multiple characters, multiple VOVs. How do you go about that? Because that has to be difficult.
Thank you. That's such a good question. It gives me a lot to think about just in regards to my process. But what my usual approach is I'll tend to make a list of the characters, and you always help me out a lot because you send me descriptions of each of the characters, which I don't always receive. And I really appreciate when I have that from the author because I'm very committed to trying to make sure I create a product that the author is happy with, and the way that they envisioned. So what I'll usually do is take this list of characters and looking at their descriptions, looking at what I know from them in the text, and give them each 3 dominant qualities. And then I'll think about how these qualities overlap and how they might affect someone's physical and vocal life. Like, so for example, if a character is more insecure, like maybe they like raise the ends of their sentences or in the way that they speak. If they're older, they might speak at a slower pace. If they're more arrogant, maybe I add like a bit of haughtiness while I'm talking, it's just like little things like that that really show up in a performance. And I also like to stand while I narrate, which I know is kind of crazy to some people just because it is long hours and it's already a lot of stamina on the voice. But I find that adopting certain postures and physicalities will just naturally change my performance and make it stronger. And then to address for romance novels, like I also tend to analyze like what kind of dynamic characters have as a couple. Like, are they going to be arguing a lot? Like, is it a more like softer romance? And then try to work on voices that also complement each other and voices that are sustainable for the length of an entire novel because I might be able to do a voice in the moment, but I have to make sure that I'm making choices that I'm able to maintain for 7, 8 hours of recording.
Really? So you've gone that length of time recording like continuously.
Not in one day. No.
Okay.
No, yeah. No, that would be wild. For me, I wonder if other people are able to do that, but yeah, I have to take breaks.
So I mean, how big is your closet? Because it sounds like you're really acting a performance when you do an audiobook. And so if you're walking around and performing, and how big is your closet to do this?
Oh no, I do have to stand in one place, but it is a
Okay.
walk-in closet. So I do kind of stand like in one place. I'm able to shift my weight a little bit, but yeah, I'm not able to move too much. It's usually just like my hands, like if I'm able to do something hand-wise or like if I'm certain characters like slouching or just adopting smaller physicality choices like that really help me get into the role.
So, what is the hardest type of scene that you feel like it is difficult to narrate? Would it be intimate scenes, fight scenes, when characters are having emotional breakdowns?
Yeah, I think that. I think that emotional breakdowns are probably the most challenging scenes for me to narrate because each one is so specific because I have to think about like what about this character's wound is really being triggered? Like why is this such an emotional moment for them? And so that takes just a little bit more like analysis and insight. Whereas I feel that intimate and fight scenes, like while those also are very specific to each character and the moment in the story, but those both come from a place of passion for me. And so I can work within the variances within that passion. And whereas emotional breakdowns, it's a little bit more difficult to get into that mindset because I tend to be enjoying what I'm doing while I'm narrating. And so yeah, sometimes I'll get really wrapped up in the story and then it'll come a little bit more naturally. But if I'm just having a nice day and I have to all of a sudden be sobbing, then that might take me a minute.
So I'm finding it fascinating. So as you're talking, it sounds like you approach audiobook narration like you would approach an acting job for a movie or a television series. Sorry, I
Yes,
don't
yes,
mean
I
to go
would.
off on a tangent. It's just
Oh, no, not at
I
all.
mean I just I mean I didn't know that that's how some narrators approach it because that's I've always said I try to write my books as you can a movie in your mind as you read it. And so I find that really cool that you approach the audiobook narration basically like acting in a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I think that maybe that's one of the reasons why like we've connected and worked on these series together. But like I completely agree. I think that like the way that you write your dialogue is very like adjacent to a script for me. And so I'm able to look at it like a script. And I mean, that's also just what my training is in and my background is in. So I'm always going to use that mindset and bring that to whatever work I'm doing and hopefully bringing some life to characters and making sure that everyone is distinct and that when people are listening, they really see the movie in their mind that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's I have to that's how I write is because I visualize it and I guess that's how it comes out on page. But forget about me. How do you protect your voice during very long recording sessions? You said that you take breaks, but like if you're really into something and it kind of, continues on and the seconds tick by, is there like a ritual you do? Is there, if, like you said, you drink tea? Is there anything else in order to protect your voice? Because your hands are in everything. And so, what if you had an audition the next day and you had narrated an audiobook the day previously?
Yeah, I hydrate a lot. I drink a lot of water, I drink a lot of tea, and like I mentioned, I do take pretty frequent breaks. And depending on the day and the book, that'll kind of depend how long I can go for. Voices that aren't in my natural register might take me a little bit longer because I will take breaks to try to protect my voice. I also have a vocal steamer that is really helpful, just like one that like just kind of a mini humidifier that just helps like soften my vocal cords and keep those hydrated more
What is that like?
directly.
I've never heard of a vocal hydrator before. So is you said it's like a humidifier, so do you hold it up to your
Yeah,
face or
yeah, it has like a little mask and it just like
oh,
warm air comes out. It helps soothe the vocal cords and keep
do you
them
do the
more.
scarves?
I haven't. No, but I've
Yeah.
seen those.
Yeah.
I feel like I should try it just to see. I had some trouble last year with my voice and I had to see I have a vocal coach that I work with who's really helpful and I was just having so many issues with having so much vocal fry at the end of my sentences. No matter what I was doing, I felt so hydrated. I was like sustaining it with my breath. And so I really had to work with her on that. And she was saying, I'm based in Los Angeles, and she was saying that maybe the smoke from the wildfires was affecting my voice. And so I got this huge air purifier, and it's just things like that that I have to do to make sure that I'm still able to do my job.
I mean, did it help the different things that you tried? Was it the smoke? That
I
was,
think so because
yeah.
it's a lot better now. I don't know if I also was just going for too long and too hard, but and so I also learned to take a little bit more take more breaks just so that I wasn't pushing myself even when I felt like I might not necessarily need it, when I might not necessarily need a break. It was just good to take one anyway, just to do a quick reset and make sure that I can keep going.
I'm gonna kind of tangent off in that. What
Yeah.
happens when you get sick? Um, because I remember, I think it was Broken Butterfly, or maybe it was Reflections of You. And I remember you getting sick, and you lost your voice for a couple of weeks. How do you recover for that? And what happens when you're in the middle of, an audiobook job, and then you have to delay it in order to get your voice better?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I've worked with such amazing clients who most all the clients that I work with nowadays, I've had a pretty long-standing relationship with. I've worked with them for many years. And so usually if I reach out, they know that's not the norm for me. I never usually delay books. And so I really try to do that as little as possible, especially since most of the time I'm allowed so much flexibility with some of the deadlines for indie authors, which is one of the reasons I really like working with indie authors is I get to work directly with the person who wrote it, and I get to build that kind of standing working relationship. And so hopefully, like after years of working with someone, like they know that I don't like to delay books. And so if I have to, I mean, I'll just go on full vocal rest to try to recover. And usually that helps a lot. And I'll be able to get it back to a point where it can be consistent with the rest of the book. But
Ask
that,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because that's ultimately the goal. I don't want all of a sudden a chapter for someone to be able to tell that the narrator
Yeah, that
is
your
sick.
voice is like a little deeper.
Yeah,
Over. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. And there's not a ton that I can really do with editing to really fix
to
that.
change
And
it.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it is just staying healthy, taking care of yourself. And I mean, like your body is an instrument, and so I have to really take care of that and um, prioritize that kind of care.
Yeah, getting better.
Mhm.
So is there a favorite trope you like to narrate? Because, in the romance verse, there's like 10 million, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, age gap, reverse harem, cowboy, rock star, billionaire, small town. Yeah. So is there a favorite trope that you really like to narrate, or does it just depend on, the story?
I do think I have a couple different tropes that I enjoy. I think that I tend to like to narrate what I like to read, and I really like to both read and perform enemies to lovers, or even just a scaled down version of that, like bad first impressions to lovers, like bad first impressions
Yeah.
to begrudging allies to lovers. I think I just enjoy that because I really enjoy good banter, and when a couple's dynamic changes a lot throughout the novel. I think that that's really fun to play and to just, it sounds weird to say since I usually am voicing both members of the couple, but to like work on developing their chemistry, like between the two leads and their dynamic in the way in which they talk to each other is really fun.
So, what do you wish indie authors knew before hiring a narrator? Because this is one question that pops up a lot in my author chat groups, and particularly with debut authors, because audiobooks are such a huge thing in the romance world, and everybody wants to jump on the audiobook bandwagon and get their books out there. But in your experience with working with indie authors, what advice can you give them?
That's such a great question. Two things mainly come to mind. I really love when I can tell that an indie author has looked at and listened to my portfolio when they reach out to me because different narrators specialize in very different things. Different narrators have different sounds to their voices when they're doing male characters, female characters, accent work, things like that. So I think it's really helpful when an author has an idea of what they want the narrator to be able to deliver and have really done their research on who they reach out to, or if they're doing a more open call, to put that in the audition notes just so narrators can see, like, am I a good fit for this? Or if not, what can I do to make adjustments? And so they have a clear idea of what the author is looking for. And if the author doesn't know yet, I mean, that's also something that I work with them and always totally happy to help, like, work in a certain direction to be like, this is what I can offer you. That is up to you if that's what you feel like the right sound for your book is. And then the second thing is, I'm very grateful. I feel like I don't have to audition quite as much anymore as I did when I was starting out. But my other advice would be to, this is very logistics oriented, but to keep audition requests no more than maybe 3 to 5 minutes, just because it takes a lot of work to record and edit samples and to like work with the characters and try to take into account different notes and all of the like requirements. So at the auditioning stage, it's all free. So just to remember to be respectful of your prospective narrator's time.
Thank you for bringing that up because that was going to be the thing I was going to jump into next is narrators have to audition just like you would if auditioning for a movie or a television show. And so how, do you approach that the same way? Because I know a lot of authors, they probably don't realize that you audition for the book, which is crazy to me, but I mean, it's cool. And I think that's how, isn't that how we met
Yeah.
when Findaway was still Findaway Voices? Because
Yes, no, I believe I auditioned for your, yeah, for your Savage Kingdom book. And so, I mean, what I'll do for that is if an author has other audiobooks out, sometimes I'll look them up on Audible and listen to their samples to see what kind of narrators they've chosen in the past. Like, if they just sometimes little things, sometimes an author will always go with a narrator who has a deeper kind of tone of voice. Sometimes they'll go for narrators who are a little faster, a little bit more energy in their reads. So there are just different preferences. And so sometimes I'll look to see if they have a history of that. But if not, then I mean, one of the pieces of advice that I feel like actors receive a lot is just to perform an audition as if you already have the part, as if like what are you bringing to these characters? What are you bringing to this story? And just to perform it like you already have it. And so to do it with that level of confidence so that the author, whoever is casting, can see what kind of artistry you're bringing. And so and then they'll be able to determine it that way, but then just to use that to make choices and be creative and give them something to work with.
so I want to delve into a controversial topic. It is the one that is impacting basically everything across the board, but particularly in the book community, it's impacting authors, narrators, and the creators, and that is artificial intelligence, AI. The rise of AI is everywhere in the book world, from AI generated stories to AI book covers and voice narration. So, how has that impacted you as an audiobook narrator and an actor?
Yes, it has been impacting me quite a bit, as it has everybody.
Yeah.
But the company that I actually got started with, they discontinued their narrator program and then shortly after announced that they were having an AI narrator program, which received a lot of backlash. I'm not sure if they're doing it anymore, but people were not happy about it, as they shouldn't be. I was really
Mhm.
upset that they had discontinued the narrator program in general, just because I had been working with them for, I think, 7 years at that point, and that was how I got, I want to say, half of the audiobook auditions that I
Oh my
received,
gosh.
and it was a huge blow to my daily work. And I'm full-time freelance, so take jobs on a case by case basis. And so to have that entire organization like cut off and that client network, I was reaching out to people individually to be like, here's my like personal email. We can coordinate that way. So disappointing for sure. I also think that the pandemic and then the actor and writer strikes have encouraged more actors to look for remote work. So, like between that and the rise of AI voiceovers, I feel pretty grateful to have gotten into the industry a little bit earlier. I'm also just in general seeing more and more on the internet of people accusing different creative work of as being AI, whether that's just
You
different
don't even want me to
music
get me
artists.
started on that.
Yeah,
Oh my
I know
gosh.
it's wild. And I'm like, I think that for
Mm.
some people, it's just their way of saying they don't like it or it just doesn't resonate with them. But it's like as a creative person, it can be disheartening to hear. I mean, it hasn't happened to me very often, but I did have one client that told me one of the books that I narrated for him was getting reviews like that. And he was like, I just have to double check with you, like that you didn't use AI in any part of this narration. I'm like, no, I've been doing this for 10 years. I I honestly don't even know how I would go about doing that. Um, I know the
Yeah.
technology exists, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so yeah, I nowadays I feel like I'll try to keep certain imperfections in the audio just to show that I am a real person who spent time and energy creating this. So I don't always edit out the vocal fry, or I won't always do like a retake of something if there's like a little wobble or something, just because I'm like, I want people to know that this is a real person. And I don't really know if that actually would discourage people from thinking things are AI. It's getting harder and harder to tell, but I am not entirely sure what else to do.
Yeah, I know. There are a lot of recent controversies in the romance world. I don't know if you heard, like last year, it was if a reader saw you used the long M dashes in your
Mm.
book, then they accused you of being AI. And I'm like, I've been using M dashes since I first started, writing and publishing. And so what people don't realize is, AI was trained off of us. They were trained off of your voice. They were trained off of our words. And so I think the kind of happy bandwagon of let's just accuse everything of being AI has gotten a little bit out of control. Um, just some of the stuff that comes up in my threads or my IG reel is ridiculous. Um, for narration, I like how you said that you include imperfections now, in order to, make it sound more like a real person. Um, if an author was considering going with AI narration, what would you say to them to convince them that using a real narrator is the way to go? Because, for me, you get the emotion, you get like the different inflections, the different, um, how some things are, said softly, something, you know what I'm saying? So, it's, what would you say to someone who is looking at that to say it's really not worth it because it's not authentic?
I 100% agree with you. I think that using real people, I mean, there's just nothing that can replace human connection. And when a real person works on something, when a real person pours their heart and soul and creativity and time and effort into a piece of work, there's just something about that that will connect with other people. That's the best part of being a human. And so that's part of why I just don't understand why we're investing so much into AI, because I mean, being creative and connecting with other human beings is one of the best parts of being alive. And so to replace that with artificial intelligence, something that's not real, something that was trained, like you said, off of artists and who are trained off of us to be able to replicate that, I don't really understand that. And so I would hope that anyone who's considering it, I know that it might be cheaper. I know that it might, in some ways, in your mind be easier, but it also is replacing what I would imagine an author would hope the impact of their book has on people, to have taken the time to write something, to craft characters, to craft a story that you hope impacts people. I would hope that authors would also want to use a real narrator because human beings are also able to impact each other and to connect with people in ways that artificial intelligence just cannot.
Yeah, and I remember in Reflections of You at the very end, to where, I write this really emotional scene and the way you narrated it. Oh my, I mean, I was like crying listening to you because I could just, you could hear just the heartstring pulls and the like you were breaking along with the character as she broke. Yeah, oh yeah, I still remember that scene that you did. It was just so amazing.
I
So
appreciate you saying that. I mean, I remember that scene too because I was very emotional. And I really love when a story can touch me that way because I'll try to use that in the narration. And I mean, keep in mind that it's not just me breaking, it's me as Elizabeth breaking or me as Ryder breaking, And so thinking about just your writing and looking at the subtext, like what does the subtext of this dialogue tell me about the character? Like, are they hiding their emotions, or like how are they feeling right now? And so it's really fun when I get to work with a text that's so rich, like in Reflections of You, and
oh,
to
thank
be
you.
able to, yeah, of course, to make those choices and to use that material because it's so much easier on me when a text actually makes me feel the emotions of the character. So then I'm just able to use that rather than having to do a lot of introspection to really conjure those feelings. So thank you for that.
Oh no, you're welcome, I guess. I always tell people you're welcome for making you cry. Um, Speaking about that, how do you recover from a scene, or how do you keep going through a scene when you do get emotional when narrating it? Because if your voice breaks too much, don't you have to stop and then kind of start over again, or do you just keep going?
No, I will stop just because
Okay.
the a reader being able to understand what's going on is the
So,
number one
instead of you
priority.
being a snot.
Yeah, exactly. The reader being able to hear you clearly and understand the story is number one. And so if emotion is getting in the way of that, I absolutely have to pause. I absolutely have to make sure that everything's coming across clearly. In addition to the emotion, that of course I want them to feel the full experience. I want them to feel what I'm feeling and what the author was feeling when they wrote this. And so I will have to pause. I stories tend to move me. It's like why I enjoy doing this type of work. So I'm not a stranger to getting swept up in the emotion of a piece of work. And so I think that just being able to compartmentalize, to be able to be like, this is um, like to also I also will reground myself in the three dominant qualities that I talked about before to be like this is this character and to remind myself how that character might be experiencing this like emotional climax here. And so I think that'll also help reground me in the character, reground me in the story so that I'm able to keep going.
Cool. Okay, I want to jump into some just for fun things.
Yes.
So have you ever fallen in love with a fictional character while narrating him or her? Because I include both, because I know that I have a book girlfriend. So my very first book boyfriend was Jason from Judith McNaught's Once and Always. And then I have a book girlfriend who I just thought was so cool, very nerdy, glasses, everything. And it was from Deborah Anastasia's book. I think it was called s- for the life of me, I can't remember the title. It was like Twisted Pink or something like that. But I just loved her. So have you ever, when you were reading, you're just like, oh, I wish this person was real.
Oh my goodness. Such a good question. I'm not sure if any have come to mind. Um yeah, maybe I mean when I was younger, I loved this wasn't one that I narrated, but when I was younger, I loved the Percy Jackson series and just loved all of the characters from that
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And so wish that all of them were real, but I feel like when I'm narrating, I a little fall in love with like a lot of the main characters just because I feel like I really get inside their heads. And so when I learn what's motivating them, like what are their coping behaviors, what are their childhood wounds, it's really hard to not feel attached to someone after learning those things. So especially for series, I will feel sad when the series is over because I don't get
Aw.
to spend time with the
Yeah.
characters anymore.
So, do you have any funny blooper stories? So, I know that, oh goodness, there was a narrator who was did like an Instagram reel, and she was reading this sex scene. And of course, some of the stuff is being said, and she was just like, losing it, and she was having to start over and everything. So have you had like a funny blooper to where you're doing something and then you maybe mispronounce a word or you say something that, you know how the words can like change and then become something
Oh
that they
yeah.
shouldn't. So,
Oh, 100%. Honestly, the main story that comes to mind is I was at home for the holidays and I had packed up all of my mic stuff so that I could record while I was home. And so I was with my sister, and she is just very weirdly good at like accent work and sound effects. And I was just like, you should be an audiobook narrator because you're better at some of that stuff than I am. And I had this fantasy novel where the author had written out like the actual I don't even know if onomatopoeia is the correct word for it, but like the dragon noise, like the noise that the dragon makes, like the brah or whatever, like in the dialogue. And I was just like, oh no, now I have to make this noise. And I was just like, I don't even know how to do this. I am not a specialist at animal noises at all. I cannot do this. And so I asked my sister, I was like, what is this noise? Can you help me figure out what this was? And so I just turned the mic on and we're just like making these like terrible dragon noises back and forth. Like, and like things like that. And I think that the final audio clip I used was hers because I was like, I just hope that this doesn't come up again. I think I control F like bra to see if it like came up again because I was like, can you just like make a couple of different noises that I could maybe use in different cases if the dragon makes more noises throughout the book because I don't think I can do this. But yeah, I think that the final audio clip I used was hers. This was also late at night, so we're just doing this into the mic. The next morning, my brother approaches us and was just like, what were you guys doing last night? Because it sounded insane. So, yeah, that is probably one of the wilder, just blooper moments of trying to be an audiobook narrator that I've had.
gosh, no, yeah, I agree with you. It's you will never find that in my books. I don't, and I'm sorry to, and I apologize fully to authors who do it, but I don't want those long drawn out things of the sounds that they make. Just describe the sound. Don't write the sound. So it drives me nuts. Just like I'm like done.
Oh,
Can't
I
do this.
definitely prefer that other like than I mean even a character where the line of dialogue will be like and so
Yeah,
I have to be in
yeah,
the booth being like, okay, how do I make this sound like real?
yeah. No, no, I'm with you. Oh, so do you ever dream in the character voices? If you're like midway into a book narration, and one night you fall asleep, and all of a sudden that person's just talking to you.
I have not, but now I kind of wish that I do one day. Maybe that'll put the seed in my subconscious and I'll dream in character voices in the
Oh
future.
gosh. Well, you okay, I'm gonna let you guess. Guess which character used to speak to me all the time. Who do you think it would be from the books you've narrated from me?
Is it Ryder?
No,
No.
close.
Is it Elizabeth?
Fallon.
Fallon. Oh
Fallon.
my
Yep.
gosh. Okay,
It's
that makes sense.
yep.
Yeah, he'd have
When
a
I
lot
was
to
when I
say.
was writing that series, he just kept going, "Hey kitten, hey kitten," and that's how he became the character. He was never supposed to be a main character ever.
Mm.
And in the series, he was just supposed to be this person like I mentioned once at the fields. And he kept talking to me and going, "Hey kitten, hey kitten." I was like, "Fine, you're in the
Wow.
books."
I didn't realize that. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. So I love playing this or that games. So this or that, slow burn or insta love,
Slow burn.
dual narration or duet narration,
Um, Dual narration to work on, duet narration to listen to.
dark mafia romance or angsty small town romance.
Dark Mafia for sure.
Oh yeah. Age gap or single dad, or maybe
Single
both.
dad. Yeah, it could be both. Probably single dad for me.
Closed door romance or spicy scenes.
Closed door.
Really? Oh my
Yeah, maybe
goodness.
the mystery.
Okay, well, I think you answered this one earlier. Friends to lovers or enemies to lovers?
Enemies to
It would be
lovers.
the enemies to lovers. Um, so I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining me today. You can find more information about Kira on her website. I will put her bio and website links and things below in the description box. I will also include the audiobooks of mine that she has narrated because they are fantastic. And so I guess until next time, happy reading.